Hezbollah violates the ceasefire with Israel, and the U.S. president-elect warns Hamas. Hezbollah has launched mortar shells near the border with Israel and still occupies territory in Lebanon south of the Litani River. Israel says that violates their ceasefire agreement. Meanwhile, Donald Trump issued a statement warning Hamas if all hostages are not released by the time he takes office next month, quote, there will be hell to pay. His warning came after Hamas acknowledged the death of another hostage, American Omer Nutra. Well, joining us with more is former advisor to Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and JNS senior contributing editor Ruthie Blum. Ruthie, American and Israeli family members say not enough is being done to win the release of the remaining hostages. Do you think the threats will get them released? What do you make of this recent announcement by Donald Trump?
Well, I can say one thing. First of all, it was an excellent statement. It's one that President Biden should have made on day one of the war. This is outrageous. And it's not just because there were hostages with American citizenship in Gaza, in the dungeons of Hamas, but because the United States is supposed to be the greatest superpower in the world, in the free world, and it should exercise that power. And rather than doing that, Biden has spent the last 14 months saying, well, negotiate, well, we'll talk about it, and putting pressure on Israel.
Well, we saw with the Iranian hostages back in 1980, 1981, Jimmy Carter, and then they were released when Ronald Reagan came into office. Do you think we'll see that this time with Donald Trump?
I certainly hope so. But even if we don't in exactly the same way, we will definitely see some kind of movement. The fact is, there are rumors that Israel is sending a delegation to Cairo. They're not confirmed yet. Again, to engage in talks. But this time, it's with President Trump's proverbial sword hanging over their heads. And that makes a huge difference.
Well, so is a ceasefire with Hamas the way to proceed? How likely is that to happen?
Well, I hate the word ceasefire. I would prefer to call it a pause able to rescue the hostages and then to resume fighting. I mean, what we're seeing with Hezbollah in Lebanon is that we have this so-called ceasefire agreement, which is, it's not worth the paper it's written on. However, what this time what differentiates it from the same kind of deal 18 years ago is that this time Israel said, no more nice guy, no movement of troops, weapons, anything near that move to southern Lebanon, and we will blitz you, and we've been doing it. So this really is a pause in order to see if they honor the ceasefire, if we can take control, if Israeli residents can move back to their homes. And if not, we'll have to resume the war. I say the same thing about Gaza, because there is no way that the war in Gaza can be ended and leave Hamas in power. No way.
Well, you mentioned the North. Hezbollah is violating the ceasefire in Lebanon. So what must be done to get them to comply to the terms?
Well, mainly victory. I think that the world has lost sight, the Western world has lost sight of the concept of beating your enemies into submission, into begging for a peace deal, into, so when you stop a war before you win it, and you let the defeated party or the one that's on the way to defeat dictate any terms, then you've already lost. And here the trouble has been Washington and Europe, by the way, but Washington's pressure has made it impossible for Israel to achieve the kind of victory it has been achieving in Gaza and in Lebanon.
Okay, Ruthie, then what initial steps can the United States and Europe, other countries, take to ensure a lasting peace in Lebanon and Gaza?
Well, I don't know about Europe so much. I don't have a lot of faith in what's been going on in Western Europe. But I can say that President Trump has made it extremely clear to Israel, I know this about behind the scenes and also openly, that one thing he will not do is tie Israel's hands in either in any border. He will not withhold weapons the way the Biden administration has done. He certainly doesn't want, we know this, no American boots on the ground. Israelis never asked for that, don't want it. But we had purchased weapons, and the Biden administration has been slow walking them. That's one thing Trump won't do, and he certainly won't say, "You're killing too many civilians, and you better watch out." He is perfectly aware of who the good guys are in this multi-front war against Israel, and that's a huge difference.
Okay, Ruthie Blum, senior contributing editor at Jewish News Service. Thank you for taking the time to share your insights. We appreciate you.
Thank you so much for having me.